Again, if you haven't muted already, just please go ahead and mute. We're going to start recording this. Amy's already started that. I just wanted to start off and tell you thank you for tuning into the update here. I'm going to hand it off to Doug. He's out in the field today, but he wanted to call in and get a few remarks beforehand. So I'm going to hand it over to Doug, and we'll go from there.
Hey, good morning, Eric. Good morning, everyone. Sorry I can't stick around for the duration of the meeting. I'm coming at you live from the Leola Produce Market here in Lancaster County, doing a farm tour today put on by our Bureau of Market Development in the Department of Agriculture. But certainly the abundance of agriculture is on display here at the Leola Produce Market. But a huge 132.5 billion total economic endeavor for agriculture, as you know, in Pennsylvania, and ACAP is an important investment in the future of that industry. We keep saying about the connection between sustainable and viable farms with the importance of that and what that means for the farmer and what that means for the overall agricultural industry. So just thank you again for making ACAP a success. We're just so proud of where we're at here 2 years into this new program. Big news for us, of course, is the dedicated fund that we have, personal income tax, that was made part of the most recent budget. So we just, we're grateful for the General Assembly for recognizing that need. And for you all for getting us to a point where we were in a position to make the case for a dedicated fund. Eric, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe we're up to 900 applications across the state, contracts that were signed, and over 90 million in funds now that are committed to those signed contracts. So really in a good place there. Just look forward to where the future takes us with ACAP and think that there is a lot of potential for growth in the future. And for being a new program, I think we're really have made some good progress there. But we always are interested in hearing from you on where we can improve and how you feel the program can maybe pivot moving forward. Those will be important conversations that we have with this ACAP 2.0 now and this dedicated fund that we have. And please know that discussions are already underway in this current budget year for increasing that 35 million amount to something even greater potentially for future years, understanding that the need is there and will continue to be there. But really the success of this program, as we've said from the beginning, is due to conservation districts and all the partner organizations who are on this call. But we wouldn't be where we're at without your efforts and your support. So again, let us know what we need to do from here. And, I'm appreciative of the leadership of Justin and Eric and their team. Again, keep in contact with us and hope you have a good meeting. Thank you, Eric.
Thanks, Doug. I was just looking at this slideshow and got the date wrong on there. Today is September 5th, not the 6th. So I guess we're doing this a day ahead of time. So, but I do appreciate everybody tuning in. We just want to give you guys a real quick update of where the program is and where we're going here. So just to give you a little bit of overview of what we're going to cover today. We're going to give you a program update. We're going to go over the fiscal year 24 allocations, some of the updates we have on our GIS system, our practice approval system, where we're at with that and where it's going. We're going to do some bidding and procurements. We've been getting a lot of questions about that. So we're going to do a brief overview of that. We're going to talk about regional meetings, regional tech meetings, and then we're going to open up to you guys for questions and answers. So with that being said, so just a little bit of a program update. As many of you are probably aware, we did get the Clean Streams Fund. We have dedicated funds of $50 million per year. With that, ACAP did receive 71.5% of those funds, which is $35.75 million. With that being said, we still have the ARPA money. We still have that deadline in December 2026. So that indicates we can't take our foot off the gas. We're trying to spend that ARPA funds, even though we do have some dedicated funding coming into this program. We still have that deadline to meet, and we do need to meet that deadline. So currently, as Doug already said, we have $93 million either committed or spent in the program so far. A little over 930 contracts are in the system, and 329 of those have been completed. It's just a great job and great collaborative effort across the board. Many thank yous to the conservation districts and the hard work that you guys been doing. It's been really a pleasure working with all you guys and seeing what great work you've been doing, and also working with the partners across the board and getting these projects done. So that's sort of where we're at right now. So I want to talk a little bit about the allocations. So what we know, the Clean Streams Fund has a $50 million a year. So we received $35.75 million. Also, with this fiscal year, we received additional $7.75 million in interest funds that came from the ARPA, the federal funds. So we got a little bit of interest off of that last year. So they're throwing that into that for this year. So we got $43.495 million to spend to distribute to you guys. So after we take our admin off the top and money for contracts, districts will be left with $40 million, 15,400. So that'll be distributed out to you guys. We did set a minimum of $300,000, and we will give you a 50% advancement on that. So just to give you an idea what that looks like, hopefully you all can see that. I'll give you a little bit of time to look through that, find your county there. But looking at that, there's many of you have the minimum one there. The highest is around 4 million. But we use the same allocation method as we did in the original formula. The only thing we did change was, instead of using the 2017 ag census data, we updated that to the 2022 data. So it changed some numbers around. It didn't change it drastically, but we figured this was the best way to do it to keep everything in sync in the way we run things in the past. So if you have any questions about how much your district is getting, questions about the formula, please reach out to us. We'd be more than happy to sit down with you. Now, do take notice. Even though you have these allocations, if you feel that you can't spend those funds, reach out to us. Let us know so we can redistribute those funds. If you got $500,000-$600,000 coming to you and you think you can't spend that, please let us know so we can take that into account and see what we need to do to move those funds or to help you guys out in spending those funds. So we're always here for us to talk to. Reach out to our regional people, reach out to Justin or I. Would be more than happy to do that. So I wanted to jump into a little bit of our ACAP GIS updates. I think Ben and Elaine are both on there, so I'm going to run through this real quick. If they have anything to add, I'll let them jump in there. They can unmute themselves and jump in there and talk about anything else. If you have any questions, please feel free to raise your hand. There's a lot of people on here, so if you want to raise your hand, go ahead and raise your hand. Ask questions as we go through this. So some of the recent changes we had, these are just some bullet points. I'll go through each individual one, give you some visuals on these. So replenishments are now part of the quarterly reporting process. Project returns can be entered into the payments tab. Project address verification maps, work sites, and ACAP support website. So your replenishments are now part of the quarterly reporting process. Please submit these in a timely fashion. These are auto-generated replenishment requests. So as soon as you submit the quarterly reports, these auto-generated replenishments come to us. We can process those right away. With that being said, you cannot submit the next quarter until the last quarter has been submitted and accepted. So what that means is we can't process your replenishments until they're submitted. So you won't receive any payments until those reports are submitted and accepted. So this is all automatically generated. There's no submission button for you other than getting your quarterly reports and submit it to us. So as soon as we accept that, these replenishment requests will be auto-populated. We'll be able to process through the comptroller, and they get those, and those will come to you automatically. Project returns. This is for whenever, if there is ever a case that you give a district or a landowner too much money, and the landowners doesn't, you get the bills and the receipts, and there has to be money coming back to you. This is in the contract. You go to the payments tab, and you'll see this little feather with the envelope there. You click on that. So just to give you an example of this one right here, this was a $3,000 contract. So there was only $2,500 spent in that. So the landowner will give you a $500 return. This has come up in a couple of different places with a couple of different districts. So we put this into the GIS to make this a little bit easy. So basically, you click on that return amount, date return, and put a reason on that and save it. So that will bring the money back into the GIS system. It'll put it back into the amount that you have available for projects. Project address verification map. We've been noticing some contracts were entered with incorrect addresses, or there may be a property that don't have an address. So please enter a full address, a zip code. If you don't have an exact address for the location of the project, get something close. You can click on this button over here to the right of the address in the contract worksite. That'll bring up a map. You can drag that red dot around and place it wherever you need to. But if you get an address and a zip code, the zip code is key to getting you a good address to save these into the contract. And you should be doing this for every contract. That way we got pinpoints, and it makes it easier for us to get the work sites in the right spot. This is just the work sites. It says, please select and draw the work site for each of your contracts. Please use that create and edit work site. This is for all districts. Early on, we did not have this function working. We're asking you to go back and create these work sites for each individual contracts that you have in there. I'm not sure how many. There's some districts that probably have 30 to 40 in there. Please go back there and get these work sites on there. It helps us with the tracking, letting us know where the projects are in the county. And it just gives us a good overview of the program as a whole. So if you haven't done so already, please go back in there and update these. If you have any problems, please contact us. There's help across the board. We got 2 full-time staff at the center that's helping out with this, and all of our regionals will be able to help. If you're looking for support, say you have a problem with the worksite, we have a support website up there. You can find it by clicking on this address here. But also, the easiest way to find it is whenever you log into the GIS, it is right here down here on the bottom where it says need help. And you can just click on that and send your questions in. The website does have FAQs and tutorials on that and some other documents to help out. Ben and Elaine, do you have anything that you want to cover that I've covered so far?
Hi, Eric. This is Elaine. No, that is great. And I will put the support website link in the chat.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So that's some of the recent changes that we had. Just to give you a little bit of what's going on right now, the current work. So right now, Ben and Elaine are building a new online GIS for the practice approval system. This will help us navigate, will help you navigate the practices that you are getting your approval system for, that you can certify. Helps us get the things on the map where they need to be. We're also improving the parcel layer. There's many counties out there that don't have any parcels in the GIS. Um, what we Where we pulled most of this information from was from Practice Keeper. The Practice Keeper has their own parcel layers, but there are some counties out there that are not in the DP parcel layer. So we're working with the other districts, other county entities to get these parcels into the reporting system so we all have parcels. Also, we're continuing to add the step-by-step task instructions and tutorial videos for the ACAP support website. And some future things that we're looking forward to in the future here. We're looking to continue to add the functionality for the BMPs, for us to draw the BMPs into our GIS system. That's hoping that's done by the end of this month. We talked to Mike Anderson, and he thinks that's plausible to do. And we also are in the middle of upgrading the web display and trying to help improve the experience. So that's going to be beginning this fall, and hoping to launch that winter or the spring of 2025. So that's some of the things we can look forward to. If there's anything that districts want or need, please reach out to us. We're always open to suggestions. We're willing to take your questions, suggestions, or anything like that. So please reach out to us if you have any suggestions on the GIS system. All right, with that being said, I think I'm going to hand it over to Jake to talk about the practice approval system and give us an update on that and see where we are.
All right. Thanks, Eric. Yeah, most of you may have met, but for those of you who I haven't, Jake Tomlinson, I work with the Center for Ag Conservation Assistance Training. Just going to give a quick update on PASS, where it's at, and what it is. Go ahead and advance to that next slide, if you would, Eric. All right, so really what we're trying to do here is just provide a path for conservation district employees to design, review, and approve conservation practices that don't require that PE stamp. So things that don't include manure storages, don't include roofed heavy use areas, stuff like that, the low risk conservation practices that are out there. This is going to be particularly important for projects that don't involve NRCS funding, because we then don't have that resource to tap into, the technical resource through their staff and their job approval system and things like that. So this is a system that's being set up to be able to keep ACAP projects moving along and mirror their system as well. So for each of the conservation practices that we have in our toolbox for ACAP, we've kind of grouped them into certification packages for PASS. You can see there on the left, we got different packages for grazing management, watering systems, barnyard stormwater, cropland practices. So the practices being like the agronomic practices and things that aren't hard engineering stuff, and then stream corridor. For each one of these certification packages, we're going to be developing or have developed statements of work. And in the statements of work, we have all of the different planning requirements, the design, installation, checkout requirements for the practices, and it really just kind of lays out what needs to be done for planning, designing, and implementing the conservation practices. From that, we have to date, like all of the practices that are in there are following NRCS design standards and checkout documentation. We're going to be utilizing a lot of the forms that they've already developed, so as not to reinvent the wheel on any of this, and not to like have duplicate standards or work being done under ACAP that wouldn't be the same as it was being done under NRCS programs, etc. For each of the statements of work as well, we have develop some work plans and scope of work. We actually have 2 of them that have been approved at the last commission meeting in July, and that was for the grazing management and the watering systems. So we're starting with those 2 packages first to kind of move forward with implementing the rest of the pass system. The next steps there are to develop the specific training plans, and we're going to focus these plans on the knowledge, skills, and abilities that are required to do the conservation practices within each package. And then once a person requests and starts going through those trainings, they'll actually be able to get approval under the system kind of on a case-by-case basis for really 1 or more of the practices that are included in the package itself, understanding that there's a handful of conservation practices that have been grouped together for training purposes, and because those practices cover typical projects that you might see on the landscape, but maybe someone going through the process is only ready to do a handful of conservation practices that are in there. So it's not going to be an all or nothing scenario. Again, once someone goes through the necessary trainings and kind of can demonstrate that required knowledge, skill, and ability, they're then going to submit some work samples so that we can actually see the designs and the actual checkout documentation and construction oversight that would be going on with these projects before they get full approval under the practice approval system. So what that's going to look like is maybe submitting a design for a project you have coming up. If you're a really seasoned and experienced technician, maybe it's submitting a design for something you've already done so you can move forward in this system. But just kind of providing that work product so that our contract engineer, HRG, and the center staff and the commission staff can take a look at that, make sure it aligns with the statements of work and NRCS standards and specifications and all the things that we need it to align with to be able to certify these practices. So the number of work samples that you may have to provide will be kind of fluid. It's going to be based on the risk of the practice, and the complexity of the practices and projects that you're submitting. But we're still developing kind of what the framework for that will look like, but it'll be reasonable, hopefully, at the end. Let's see. From there, once you've gotten that practice approval under the system, we're going to be doing some quality assurance and quality control, obviously. And really, these are just going to be opportunities to kind of look at your work, think about it as a learning opportunity, think about if there's any deficiencies, what we need to do to correct them, things like that, but also as a program review too. Are we providing adequate training? Are you guys comfortable doing these practices? Things like that. So just kind of using this QA/QC as a learning tool and a way to advance the program moving forward. Any other things just quickly to cover is there's going to be a number of different support documents that are going to be coming out, trainings that are coming out through the practice approval system. Eric has on the agenda here later today to talk about some template contracts and bid packages and things like that. So we'll go over that a little bit on this call. Just know that these things are coming. We're working on them to try and make this a smooth and integrated process so that the practice approval system is really useful for you. And that's all I had, Eric. Oh, one more thing. We'll advance to the next slide. The emergency temporary approval. I did want to quickly remind everybody that this exists. So as we're kind of getting ready to roll out the practice approval system as a whole, we know that there are still some projects that need to go in the ground. There's staff out there that have the technical capacity to do that. And the emergency temporary approval is that bridge for that gap. So if you look on the slide here, there's a QR code that goes to the survey link that you can request coverage for individual projects under emergency temporary approval. And when I'm done talking here, I'll throw some links in the chat. One link will go to a recorded webinar about this, and the other link will go to the same place the QR code does, that survey that we have set up to actually request coverage under this. And that is all.
All right. Thanks, Jake. So we'll move on to the bidding and procurements section, and Rebecca Psycho, the Western Region ACAP coordinator, will be joining us to take over presentation. Becca, if you're on and trying to talk, you're muted.
Um, do you, should I don't have access to changing the slides, right?
Yep, there you go. I'll change them
Okay.
for you.
Okay. Sorry, we're going to work on some bidding sheets. This just is, again, you've probably seen this slide already. This tells you what the requirements are for what the purchase is. If it's less than 10,000, it can be considered a micro. That small purchase is the time where you're allowed to get the quotes that don't require that public bidding. And then greater than 250 to a single contractor is where you're required to publicly advertise and get sealed bids that you open at a public meeting. This is that document. I wanted to include where it's available. I wasn't sure if everybody was aware of it existing. It's an existing document that you can use to basically show the history and show that you're getting the quotes or whether people didn't reply, and be that part in that file that shows that you went through the process of trying to get the sealed bids, or describe how you compared prices in a micro purchase. Just that history that will show you if you are following procedures. Just wanted to reiterate that the threshold is 250,000 when it's being contracted to one contractor. So if you are separating out your contracts for a project, if you are only doing it per, like if you're having a excavating contractor and a concrete contractor, and you are separating out those pieces of work in different contracts and they are less than 250, you can do the quotes process even if the project is above 250. But if one contractor is doing both the concrete and both the excavation, or both the fence and both the concrete or setting the roof, and it's over 250, you have to use the bidding process. If your county has a lower threshold for bidding or stricter standards, you have to follow the stricter standard. And we are currently working on putting up some documents that would be available for you guys to use. If you do not already have documents, if you already have a practice in place for your bidding and it is working well, you do not have to use these documents that we are making, but we wanted to make something available as a resource if you do not have a current process that is working well for you. This will include a couple different recommended separate ones that you can either attach if you need to or not include it if you don't. We will make, currently it is looking like it's going to be a fillable Adobe. We will look at also making it a fillable Word document, and it will have a drop down where you can select the documents that you want to include in your contract and have those as an option, and have separate documents so that the contract only needs to be as large or as small as you need for that specific project. This slide just has a list of a couple options for those. Please, if anyone has a suggestion of an additional sheet that would make to include as an option for contract documents, I think I'm already going to add a performance bond option, or if you have any other suggestions, please send me an email. My email is repsycho@pa.gov. And also we will have a option where you can drop down and select which contract supplements, which would be part of the design portion that the contractor would need to be able to see to make their price, is just listed there, which there are several others. If we could go to the next slide. And then I was just going to share the draft if you guys wanted to look at it and see where we're at. It is not complete. Or if you just want to wait till it's done, we could wait. But if you had any notes, I could share the draft to go over, and anyone could make any comments, or please email me comments as they're coming.
Yeah, Becca, go ahead and share that if you have it up.
Okay. Okay, let me try share. There we go. Don't know why that disappeared, on why I can't get it to display a full page. Okay, we'll just go with 2 pages. Is everybody able to see that?
Yep. See it.
Okay. This would just be the title page and then a table of contents, which that is still being updated as it goes. And this is just a copy of the bidding instructions document that we're making together and the contract document, which I think we will separate so that you can use whatever you would need. This next page just goes into the project descriptions. This is where you would pick each of your supplemental plans, which we have in a list. And then the next page is the bidding instructions. Each of these are also drop down or type in, and then you can select your own county from a drop down list. It outlines the definition of a responsible bidder. It says that you have to submit all bids on the paperwork that has been provided. You have to submit a complete bid. They have to be sealed, and it gives you a date to place where the bids will be opened and selected. This just continues. It requires a pre-bid meeting. All questions must be submitted in writing, gives you time to place the contract time, and it just defines that the contract is going to be between the applicant and the contractor, and it's only being facilitated by the County Conservation District. The following page is one that is still getting worked on right now. This is, I think, as the State Conservation Commission, we are going to recommend that bids go for a lump sum bid for the project rather than a per item bid schedule, just because the per item puts a more strain administrationally on the conservation district. But that sheet is still has, I still have a lot of work to do on this one. The following is just a signature page, and then we get into the first page of the contract documents. There's still lots of formatting to be completed on this, but there's just going to be a section where it gives you the part to input your title. I still have to put in all the fillable spaces, but these will all also be, everything that you need to type in will be made into a fillable space, so you'll be able to see every place where you need to actually input a value within the document. It will state the parties, it states the contract documents, the payment schedule. It also notes a section where that this funding is specific to ACAP and that they'll have to meet the standards set by ACAP in order to complete the project. Another place where, just because this may be a separate document, to set the contract period and when all work needs to be complete. That the contractor is responsible for becoming familiar with all documents. A portion where if you're going to have subcontractors, that the subcontractors are the contractor's responsibility. An indemnification section, laws and regulations where the contractor is responsible for following all codes and everything that's relevant. An insurance section, the reasons for termination, whether it's an act of God or that the applicant is able to say they want to stop the project at any point, and at that point, no more the unfinished work will not be paid for. And then this is kind of where I got where it's starting to get a lot more rough. I have a lot more things to add a verbiage about a bid bond, changes in work, and then general construction and inspection notes. Which at this point, this is just such rough that it's, if you have any comments, please call and let me know, but this is not a finalized document at this point. Is there any questions or comments?
I think there was a few questions in the chat box. Maybe we can go ahead and knock those out right now, then come back to the top when we get into the question and answer the rest of them. Just a general comment. Bidding procurements should be as consistent as possible from the county to county within the program, giving us those standards, lessen confusion for consultants and contractors working in multiple counties. Jessica Buck wanted to know, did I hear correctly that we were to follow county bid rules if more strict than ACAP bid procedures? Yes, that we need to follow the one that's more strict. That's why we sort of try to stay away from policies across the board. Yes, we have to have policies across the board, but we do realize that the counties do have sometimes more strict policies than what we do. So our county rules would be exceptionally restrictive, so we prefer to use ACAP bid rules. Our county solicitor initially agreed that we can follow the program rules, which are more lenient. We're required to follow county rules if more strict. Jessica, sounds like you've already reached out to your county solicitor. I would just follow his recommendation on that because he's giving you legal advice. But a lot of times, I know counties do have to follow theirs, depending on if they're independent or if they are county run. Sometimes you don't have that option. So I would definitely check with your legal counsel with that. Adam McLean asks, is there a way to print the contract out of GIS like dirt and gravel low volume road so that the information doesn't need to be filled out in both GIS and a contract document? That is a good possibility. That might be a question better for Ben or Elaine. If you want to chime in on that question, I think that's a possibility, but we'll leave it to the experts.
Thanks, Eric. This is Elaine Henricks. Adam, are you talking about the contract between like a bidder and a county conservation district, or the contract between the county conservation district and the farmer or property owner?
Adam, do you want to mute?
Yeah, I guess I'm talking about the farmer.
Okay. Yeah. So for the farmer, where currently you all are entering contract information into the sort of the contract editor and the contract tab, we are actually planning to put that in. I forgot to include it in Eric's list of things that we're working on. That yes, Mike, who's worked on the dirt and gravel roads, had brought that up. So we are planning to get that. We need to get a similar, like a PDF, sort of fillable PDF format almost laid out, but then that fillable PDF would automatically be filled by the GIS system. So that is on our list of things to do. Thank you for bringing it up again.
Does that answer your question, Adam?
Yes.
All right. Rich, if we have a large pit project and we are only cost sharing the excavation 249,000 and the concrete is 249, we only need to follow the small bid procedures. That 249 number is close enough. I would almost go ahead and bid it because it's not hard to get $1,000. But in all reality, if it was 200, if you had a $400,000 project and you split it out 200,000, yes, you would just have to get quotes for that and make sure you document those quotes. Yana, is there a timeline when the contract documents will be finalized and ready to use? That's a good question for Becca.
I expect to have these completed by end of next week, and then hopefully go through reviews. I just want to confirm that what all reviews need to be complete on these, and then they would be released after that. I do not have a final timeline on what reviews need to be completed on these before we would release them.
Yeah, so just to expand on that, anytime we do any kind of documentation, it's good for us to send it to our legal team to look at those. Sometimes they get to it quickly, sometimes they don't, but we just like to get eyes from our legal team on that. I would say if Becca says she's going to have it by next week, I would say probably looking at least November, December is probably what we're looking at as turnaround for the documents to be ready, which probably wouldn't be bad timing for you as conservation districts and us. Allows us to get into the winter planning period and have those documents ready to go by spring when construction starts to and the bidding starts to roll around here in the wintertime. So Brian, the $250,000 steel bid requirement is based on estimates, right? We aren't bidding projects through simple process estimate under 250, heating prices higher than 250. Yeah, it's based on good cost estimates, Brian. So as long as we have good cost estimates, we can sort of base that on that. But if we think the project's going to go over that $250,000 threshold, we do need to put that out for bids. And to be honest with you, if you got a big project, it might be better for the districts or the landowner themselves just to bid the whole project out. That way you get a good project. Sometimes these bids are even coming in under what the project estimates are even coming in as. So if you think you're going to be close, sometimes it's best just to be safe than sorry, and just other than just trying to split hairs and go that route. Sandra, one of the problems we are having is that we are required to get quotes for jobs that landowner will be completing themselves because contractors know that they will not be getting the job. What should we do in this situation? I mean, that's a good question. I mean, we still need to get quotes, a good quote or a good cost estimate. If you're having problems with that, reach out to us. Maybe we can help you navigate that, Sandra. So let's get together offline and maybe we can talk through those issues. Anybody else have any questions about bidding and procurements right now before we move on? So we'll go ahead and move on here. We'll come back to the questions here. Share this. I want to talk a little bit about regional tech meetings. So SEC thought it'd be good to sort of do what Mutual Management does and get techs in the regions together. These will just be structured more as like a roundtable meeting. Allow the technicians to get together, discuss some ACAP issues, maybe ACAP staff needs or anything like that. This could also possibly be a place where districts will bring in showcase projects and share those with the region around them. Discuss what went right, what went wrong. It's more of a thing that we want to reach out to you guys to see if that's something that you districts will want to do. Do you think it would be beneficial for you? Just looking for any kind of feedback on that. Feel free to unmute because we'll get into questions and answer with this. Jessica Buck said, thinks a great idea. We would want this to be in person. I think we get more accomplished when we have in-person meetings, get more interaction. So these would probably be in-person meetings. Well, there might be a time where we have some virtuals, but we would like to get everybody face to face. And this what we're thinking right now, maybe a half day. So you're not wasting the whole day at these meetings, maybe a half day, or unless we get a lot of agenda items that we want to cover, maybe we can turn it into a whole day. If we ever get in, well, when we get into the pass system, maybe we can do some continue education through that too as well. That's just some things that we're rolling around here. So that is that. So we'll get into the question and answer. And I would really love for somebody to raise their hand and ask questions out loud. I can go through these questions at the top, but I see Josh. Go ahead, Josh, and unmute and ask your question.
Yeah, I wanted to go back to the requirement of landowners doing the project themselves and still requiring quotes. Why would they need to get any other quotes if they're going to do the work themselves?
They really don't need to get quotes if they're going to do the work themselves. We just need to make sure that the work they're doing and what they're asking for reimbursement is within reason of the work being done. So we need to have a good idea what maybe the labor rates are in the area, what the materials cost and everything. So as far as getting quotes is if they're doing the project themselves, they really don't need to, but they need to have some backup information to make sure they're within the realm of the cost.
Right, that makes sense. I was just going back to the question where they're having trouble getting other contractors to bid on the job because they know they're not going to get the job, and I don't know that that would be necessary.
Hey, Eric, if
Yeah.
it's okay, could I elaborate? I think I know where the misunderstanding is coming from this.
Okay, go ahead.
So, I think the thought is like you're reaching out, so you have your estimate and you're reaching out to contractors and you're getting quotes knowing that the farmer wants to do this project. So the part of this is that for these projects that the farmers are doing, you should still have a good estimate. How you are getting that estimate, if you're calling and getting quotes, if you have an engineered estimate, you need to have an estimate for that project for how you allocated funds. And then if the farmer's doing it, he still needs to follow that sheet, I think, that I attached. So for some large purchases, for example, the farmer has to buy, 700 fence posts. That would be probably less than $10,000, but you need to show in that micro purchase that you made a good effort to make sure you are getting a good cost for that. So whether you're calling and getting costs for each of those fence posts, you've shown that you've searched for different prices. You need to have a paragraph where if it's more than that 10,000 for any material cost, then you would probably call and get quotes for a material cost that came in over that 10,000. Does that answer the question? Am I getting a right interpretation of what the question was? And does that answer make sense, please?
So, Becca, what you're saying is as long as they have put the work in and said, I've called this place, and this place, and this is what their prices are, that would be considered their quotes. In our county, we have a price cap of what the farmer can be reimbursed for their time at $25 an hour. So their time wouldn't be an issue unless you would need a quote on what you think their hours would be.
For this project, you already have an estimate, right?
Yeah, every project we do, we have an estimate of some sort, whether that would be from PACD or an engineer or something like that.
Yeah, so you have an estimate, you have the cost. So if the farmer is doing the work, then he needs to follow that procurement sheet to document that you are trying to get good prices for things. So you
Okay.
already know that the labor is going to be cheaper, but perhaps he needs to show for some of his material purchases that he's still getting a good cost.
Right. So if he would say contact, Ken Cove and Tractor Supply and Bull Barn, and he would have quotes from them saying this is how much their posts are and this is where I'm acquiring my posts, that would count as his quotes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you'd be fine with that.
Yes.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
All right, so I'll go back up to the top and run through these questions. What is the time frame spent for each yearly allocation? So we're looking at 2 years from when you receive the funds to spend that. We do have a little bit of wiggle room. These funds are set up like the dirt and gravel low volume road funds. It'll function the same exact way. So we will work with you if you're running into some problems and stuff like that. We might have a little bit of wiggle room, but we got 2 years that we need to spend these funds on these yearly allocations. Adam asked when we'll be getting the 2024-2025 allocations. Thanks for bringing that up. We are taking these allocations and recommending these to the board on September, next Tuesday. So as soon as the board approves the allocations, we'll be able to start the process. So I would say it'll probably take another month, maybe. So you're probably looking, I would say probably no later than November to get those funds, and that would be the 50% up front. Even though you're getting these funds, I will tell you we still need to spend the ARPA funds first And then that's the way the replenishment will work. We'll spend down those ARPA funds first, and then we'll get into the state money. Alan asks, for the returns, could a landowner return funds before close of the tax year so they aren't taxed on as income, and then we can reallocate it to them when they're ready to spend the funds? There's a delay of securing a contractor, for example. I guess you could, but if you know that the project is going to be pushed back or anything like that, this is probably going to happen. Madeline, if you want to jump on here, this is probably going to happen when you do an advancement to the farmer. Is that what your question's about?
Yeah. Basically, I mean, we had a situation kind of like this happen, as you may remember. Just that the farmer was pretty certain that he was, had his ducks in a row and was going to be able to spend his like advance that we were offering him. And we were very clear with him that, make sure that you can spend it before the end of the year, et cetera. And there was a bunch of delays in securing fencing contractors, and it didn't get spent before the close of the year. So I'm wondering if this returns feature, could kind of help mitigate some of that in the future. Obviously, we do our best to be reasonable in terms of what the initial advance is, but sometimes unexpected things happen. Just wanted a little more clarification.
Yeah, I think in that case you probably could. I mean, you're not changing anything in the contract. You haven't closed the contract, so you probably could use that function for that. But if we ever run into that case, reach out to us and we'll see what we can do.
Sure, thank you.
Yeah. Kelly asks, will the grazing management package remove the need for NRCS grazing plan to implement grazing practices? That's not really. Jake, if you want to jump in on this question, I'll give my opinion, and then you can go from there. So it's not really intended to get away from NRCS standards or anything like that. But I mean, if we can follow NRCS grazing plan and get implemented grazing practices, Jake, I'll let you go ahead and answer that one.
Yeah. So within the statement of work that for grazing management, it outlines the planning requirements, and they're taken directly from meeting a 528 grazing plan for NRCS. That said, you do not have to have one that has been reviewed and approved by NRCS to do a grazing project. You just have to have a plan that kind of checks off all those boxes. And we're going to be providing the resources necessary to do that, as far as within the trainings and things like that, if you go through the PASS certification system, you'll be able to provide that base level plan that's needed to do conservation practices through ACAP on grazing ground. So it doesn't negate the need to have an NRCS plan. It doesn't require it, but the planning components and everything are going to mirror NRCS.
Next question, Jake. If we are installing practices making use of NRCS job approvals, do we need emergency or PAS or PASS?
Only if the project does not involve EQIP funding. So if you're working on a project that is funded in part by EQIP, and you're working, and NRCS knows that you're the one out there doing it, and they've approved you using your job approval for the practices, that's between the district and NRCS, and totally okay. If you have a project that doesn't involve NRCS NRCS funding, it's ACAP only. NRCS is not allowing you to use your job approval authority for coverage on that project. So that's where PASS kicks in and provides that additional overarching approval authority for those type of projects to be done. So if it's a standalone project and you want to use your job approval authority, the interim, that emergency temporary approval is kind of the way you would do that at this point. One of the criteria for demonstrating that you're technically competent and able to do those projects is if you have standing job approval authority through NRCS already. And then we look at that and provide kind of like a yes, you can move forward with this project based on X, Y, and Z. But your coverage isn't under JAA, it's under the SCC saying you're good to go. Is that clear?
I'm looking down through the questions here. Laurel, she says, if there was something the district wanted, would they want nutrient management roundtables to be on the same day? That's always a possibility. That's something we can look into later on down the road, Laurel. We can discuss that in house, or we can discuss it with the districts. I think we covered the quotes for materials. Donna, did we cover your question there?
Yes, you did.
Yeah. Not a fan of in-person meetings. We could make a virtual option that you could log into. We can always make that possible. That's not a problem. If we can get a project done before we get the 24-25 initial allocation and we use district funds to cover it, can we ask for reimbursement for interest that we lost? That's, I don't know the answer to that question. I will check into that question and let you know. These ACAP regional meetings have a real purpose more than just getting together, then yes. But if it's just to get up to show up, I don't want these meetings to just to be a meeting to get together. I want these meetings to be meaningful with a real purpose. We hope to have a good agenda before we get together. Maybe there's some topics that we need some training on. Maybe there's some new techs that need training on that. So yeah, I want these meetings to be purposeful. I want them to be beneficial. And I don't want to waste anybody's time.
Hey, Eric, let me chime in here quick.
Yep.
The purpose really is to get the districts together in a region on a small basis, face to face, and let you talk to each other about the problems you're having and how you're working on those issues, or if you're having the same problems. And it also gives us direct feedback from you guys at those meetings for things we need to work on too, right? So we're really trying to improve the program overall here, Wade. That's the purpose. So getting together in these small groups, people are more likely to talk to each other when you're in a small group than when you're in a big group like this, right? So that's how we get some more direct feedback. That's how you guys get direct feedback from each other. You can look at site-specific problems, talk through these site-specific issues in more detail at these meetings. So that's kind of the purpose here. Hope that helps a little bit.
Tom wants to know where the question and answer document is located. Should have been on the website. If it's not, we can get to it. We are in working on the admin manual. We're hoping to have that done by the end of this year. Regional staff is working on that. The center staff is working on that. So there's a lot of working workings going on, a lot of working hands on this. What coverages does the pass authority provide? Liability protection. JCAP mentioned coverage. What kind of coverage?
Yeah, you want me to run with that, Eric?
Yep.
Okay. So pass is the coverage, air quotes coverage, is really that a person, a district employee, has demonstrated through the training and submitting work samples that they have the knowledge, skill, and abilities to implement the conservation practices that they're applying for. So the way this whole thing works is very similar to NRCS's JAA. We've contracted with HRG, our engineering firm, to help us build this framework, provide the engineers to review the designs, provide the engineers to kind of come up with the trainings and the content and things like that, and then ultimately implement this. So there will be liability coverages associated with that underpass, as long as you are planning, designing, and implementing conservation practices in accordance with those statements of work, the NRCS design standards, just like job approval authority is. Like, as long as you're working under the system the way it's intended to be, you would be air quote coverage and liability coverage. Specifics on that, what that means, what liability coverages there are, and all that, I really don't have the answer to that. We need to flesh that out a little bit for districts that are asking specific liability protections coverages, and get some answers for you there. And we'll be sure to do that when we roll out the full pass system, so you know exactly what liability coverages there are, especially if your counties or district boards are really asking some pointed, hard questions about that.
Hey, Jake and everybody, keep in mind, you guys are delegated to do this program, right? It's delegated through the State Conservation Commission, Department of Ag. You are acting as commission employees. So you are under the liability protection of the state when you are doing actions that are under your delegation agreement, right? So if you're doing work that is part of your delegation agreement, which if you get the pass authority, right, you are under your delegation agreement to do these things, you are covered liability protection from the state. Now, if you go do things outside of that and you approve a manure storage pit and you don't have the authority to do that, you're not under the liability protection of the state. So keep in mind, this is a delegated program, so you do have coverage when you're acting appropriately and within your delegation agreement.
We did skip one too, Eric. I see from Brian. He had a question about JAA and being dependent on a funding source. I'm not sure I understand what the question is. Brian, was that answered? Do you want to clarify something more there?
Well, right. The statement was made that we can't do ACAP only projects and use our job authority from NRCS. I've never heard that. If I'm doing a project that's installation of a practice in a conservation plan, it's covered under JAA no matter how it's funded, or always has been. Are you saying that NRCS said we can't do ACAP projects and use our JAA?
Yeah, much like ACAP can't be extended to projects, or the practice approval system at this point can't be extended to projects that aren't funded by ACAP, like the mechanism to be covered under that. If you're not an NRCS employee and you're doing projects that are ACAP only and not part of a project that's funded through EQIP, JAA does not apply. That's what NRCS has said. If anybody's
I've never heard that before. Well, I mean, I've installed countless practices that have been funded or not even funded, just practices people wanted installed. As long as they're in a conservation plan, they are covered under JAA. It's JAA is not funded. I mean, it's not funding dictated. It's just, it has to be part of a conservation plan. I understand if it's an Ag E&S plan, I'm not covered. But if it's under a conservation plan, and I'm installing the practice, it's always been understood you're covered by your JAA. I've never heard that before.
Yeah, you should probably reach out to NRCS and kind of clarify that. I'm just going off of what they've said specifically to ACAP at this point.
Got another question. What is the timeline for the review of designs through PAS?
So for the emergency temporary approval system, we're trying to turn these requests around in a couple of weeks because we know that these are projects that are needing to get on the ground right now. As the full practice approval system rolls out, I would suspect that we're going to try to follow that same timeline. We do not have that necessarily ironed out at this point, nor do we really know the full mechanism of how staff will get those to us. We're building essentially a database. It's going to be like you're applying, send in your design, and then you'll be tracked through the system so that we know what where you're at with reference to how you're going to be given approval under each certification package for the system. So we're still building that out, and that should be very clear here once we have these first two grazing systems management, watering systems ironed out and ready to launch here, hopefully this fall, later this winter.
Any more questions?
Hey, Eric and Jacob, this is Mark with Buckwater with NRCS. I was comment on Brian's comment. I maybe if it has a conservation plan, it may have been with EQIP kind of at the planning stage, but basically the NRCS job approval, you have your planning, you have your I&E, you have your design, and then you have your construction categories on the JAA. So if it's not EQIP, if it's not an NRCS program come design and construction, those are different components, and it's basically backing you with NRCS or JAA. So if it's not an NRCS program, that's kind of where that's based, where it's not then connected with NRCS, and your JAA wouldn't be appropriate. So maybe work with your local tech center there to see what you're able to do.
Well, Mark, you do realize JAA existed before EQIP did. JAA, nowhere in there does it mention a funding source for what you're doing.
But it's an NRCS job approval, right? So if you've been given an NRCS job approval, it like your work would be checked by NRCS. So it's backed. So you're backed by NRCS. So if it's not saying it's not working out great, you're doing things as per your NRCS job approval. But if you're designing, constructing things, you need to be working through that. And eventually, has it been updated? Is it active? Have you worked with your area engineer to update that? If it's 3 years old, it's not applicable anymore. And if something would happen, you wouldn't be backed by NRCS. So you just got to be careful there.
All right. If there's not any more questions, we'll end this 45 minutes early and let you get on the rest of your day. Appreciate everyone's questions. If you have any more questions later on, feel free to reach out to our regional staff, the center staff, myself, Justin, whoever. We're always here to help you here. Thank you.